Hello, welcome to How to Monitor Catch-up Premium as a Governor. This is a video from the Diocese of Bath and Wells. My name is Claire Hudson. I am a school organisation and governance advisor, and outside of work, I am Chair of Governors. In this video, we'll be covering what is catch-up premium, what the Governor's responsibilities are, questions that you might want to ask, monitoring you might want to do in this area, reporting back on catch-up premium, and also want to finally finish up looking at what Ofsted might ask you about your catch-up premium, and then finally just to look at the link back to the Church of England Vision for Education and what might be useful for you to think about in this subject for SIAMs. Just a note for anybody who's watching from a non-church school, this is all exactly the same with the exception of the last two slides, so please do skip over those to the last slide when you get to them. Thank you. Catch-up premium is simply £1 billion worth of funding the government has provided to support children and young people to catch up on missed learning caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The government is quite clear that schools should use this funding for specific activities to support their pupils' education recovery, in line with the curriculum expectations that can be found in the guidance that is called Actions for Schools During the Coronavirus Outbreak. While schools can use their funding in a way that suits their cohort and circumstances, they're expected to use the funding for specific activities which will help pupils catch up on missed learning. Schools should particularly focus on disadvantaged and vulnerable pupils, as we know they've been particularly affected. There are a number of documents your senior leaders will have read and which will have helped them develop their use of the premium based on the recommended strategies. Governors do not need to necessarily read these, but you do need to understand how your head teacher and your senior leaders have come to the decision that they've come to in spending this funding. Schools can use catch-up premium funding to support any summer catch-up provision that they have been offering and can carry funding forward to future academic years. So you might like to ask whether there has been any summer catch-up work, and if there has been, how beneficial, what the impact of that has been. As with all other government premiums, a school has to publish a report on their website. This report needs to detail how the grant will be spent and also how the school will assess the impact of the funding. That'd be an interesting subject for governors to get their teeth into. Governors should also receive a report. It can be the same report, but it doesn't have to be. And you really want to understand how this premium fits in with the work of the school as a whole, so it doesn't sit in isolation. It's contributing to other areas too. So you might like to ask how it connects to how the pupil premium is being spent, for example, or where it fits into the school improvement plan. We'll come on to a bit more of that when we talk about monitoring in a minute. The monitoring of the use of catch-up premium funds falls into the third core function of governance as set out in the Governance Handbook 2020, and that is to oversee the financial performance of the organisation and make sure its money is well spent. The government are really clear in their guidance that the responsibility to oversee this funding lies with the governing body or the trust board in a multi-academy trust. So it's really important that you do actually make sure that you cover this in your financial reporting in your governing body meetings at least one time during the school academic year. So when you're actually starting to ask questions about how your school's spending your catch-up funding, you might like to ask something around these questions. So how is the school spending the premium? So what are we spending it on? You need to understand how your senior leaders concluded that that was the best use for the money. So do ask them, challenge them on the reason they made that decision. You need to understand what the anticipated impact of the funding is or the outcome. So how is this going to work for the children? What's the end goal? What evidence would you expect to see at the end of the year? You might also like to show that you're looking across premiums to get the best results for disadvantaged children in your school and ask how we're using catch-up premium, pupil premium to deliver accelerated progress for our most disadvantaged. You might also like to connect it to your SEN children. And don't also forget that you will have some children who are the most able, who still fall into the disadvantaged bracket. So do make sure that in the same time as you're looking at low performance, that you're also asking how the high performers are getting on as well. Ofsted are likely to want to know how you've spent your catch-up premium and how this has improved outcomes for pupils, as this is literally what we were talking about on the last slide. So this is where your monitoring forms and reports to governors will be absolutely invaluable, particularly if the Ofsted inspector has been able to read them online. So they might ask staff and governors how the funding is being spent, what impact does the funding have on pupils' progress and attainment, and what evidence do you have? Those are all things that you should know already. So hopefully that won't be too surprising to you as and when they come along. If you're watching from a non-church school, please do feel free to skip forward to the last slide now. I'm just going to very briefly talk about the Church of England vision for education and how that vision underpins the effective use of catch-up premium. Our vision talks about ensuring all children flourish, and if we do it well, we can also add our work to use our work as evidence for our SciAMSEF. So the Church of England vision for education is a deeply Christian vision, and at its heart are the words of Jesus as taken from John 10:10, "I have come that they may have life, life in all its fullness." So the vision is explained through 4 pillars, as are shown on the screen, and we work hard in the education team for our support for schools to reflect these 4 pillars, and for SciAMS, your school vision should also reflect these 4 pillars. So with that in mind, you should be able to explain your use of the catch-up premium using these pillars. There are 7 strands that your school will need to look at for SciAMS, but strand 2 is particularly relevant here. So how effective is the school at meeting the academic needs of all pupils through the curriculum is one query. And the second aspect to that is how effective is the school in identifying and supporting those who are more vulnerable and may need additional learning and have personal needs. So the questions for governors would be, how do you know that the catch-up premium is being used towards these aims in order that all may flourish? Could you describe to an inspector how the school has gone the extra mile for the community during and beyond COVID lockdowns? If you can, that will be a really lovely addition to your SciAMSEF and will really help show that your church school distinctiveness is fully embedded in the working life of the school. We've now come to the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. For further information, you might like to look at the Key for School Governors and also the National Governance Association. Both are paid for services, but both are really useful for school governors, and I would really recommend a subscription to one or both if you don't already have it. If you have any specific questions about this video, do please email me, Claire Hudson, at the address on the screen. Thank you.